He did a great job.
Jerry is fantastic. I am very blessed, as you are all blessed, to have some incredible trainers at the market center level, right? You saw Kyle, you saw Jerry, and I have Ted, and I've got Shirley, and I've got a bench of talent that people get to see and learn and hear from that are all different aspects of real estate. Some have been realtors like myself. Some have been leadership. Some have run teams. Some work on staff, like front desk or directors of first impressions or agent services. Like the opportunities in KW abound, right? We talk about what does your Disney look like? It's funny. When I got my license, God, 15 years ago now, I'm getting old. Really am becoming more quite vintage, I think. You just think you're going to buy and sell houses, and a company and a structure and an organization like KW provides you so much more. And for the first 7 years, predominantly I sold real estate. And then the next 7 years, I got into training and coaching and counseling and instructing. And it opened up an entire different world to me that I never imagined possible in real estate. So keep your mind open about the opportunities that presents itself for, and this is what I love about KW, is that there is no one size fits all. You can become ownership, you can become a TL, you become an instructor, you can go KW certified, right? You can teach around the region, you can be local, you can buy and sell for yourself or for others and get finances through a referral platform. You could end up owning market centers or work for the region. And now we're seeing all these other opportunities that we call communities, right? Which are specialty based process, luxury, new home construction, right? Sports and entertainment division. It's vast. Military is a big segment, right? It is vast what you can do in real estate. So you cannot be a generalist. You don't have to be a specialist where you just sell to one field, but you can get really good in a lot of areas and really do amazing things should you choose. I know friends that have written books, right? Like agents in my market center literally published a book last year. Like there's so much to running a business if you put yourself in the right mindset about what you're doing here, right? Real estate's not a hobby, it's a career. And you have all chosen to be entrepreneurs and run your own businesses. As scary as that sounds, and maybe some of you have never really thought about that. Let me ask you, have you guys honestly thought that you're business owners now? Have you thought it to that degree? If you haven't, yes. That's okay. Awesome. But if you haven't, start to put yourself in a mindset and understand your license is with a KW franchise. You don't work for KW, you work for yourself. So your drive and your motivation, your big why is yours and yours alone, right? We talk about direction. We talk about what's your big why. If you have the opportunity to take some of these classes, and you will, right? 6 personal perspectives, right? Growing your mindset. Like you see some books behind me. I'm not an avid reader, but I've read more books in the last 12 months than I have in the last 12 years, business related books, right? And literally Gary Keller wrote the book on real estate. Like I led off our first week with this, like the red book. Remember I said on Monday, if you don't have a copy of this, go get a copy. Did everybody go get a copy that didn't have one? Right? If you don't have one, talk to your leadership, talk to your team leader, get a copy of this book, because I assure you, it will change your world in how you're running a business, right? There are people, and this is not a KW book, this is a real estate book. And every successful realtor, regardless of the organization that they represent or work for, has read this book. So when I say you work for the guy or work for the company that wrote the book on real estate, it's really kind of no joke. That's Gary. He's an incredible mind in real estate. Anyways, I go off of these tirades sometimes, but I want you guys to understand and put yourself in the right frame of mind about what you're doing. And leverage the tools around you, the people around you, and the systems around you to grow. When I got my real estate license, I was an investor. Okay? I had worked in corporate America, as I mentioned, with hotels and resorts. I had run and had teams of 70 people that worked for me. And so therefore, when I got my real estate license, I really had no interest in building a team. So when you read the red book, it'll talk about level 1 to level 7, and there's a lot there. But that doesn't have to be your goal. You don't have to decide that you want to be a level 7 owner and operator. That wasn't me. I wanted nothing more than either, believe it or not, after running and being the guy, I spent a lot of time looking. Dylan, I'm teaching, buddy. Okay. I spent a lot of time looking to work with somebody or for somebody. I could never find it because of my personality. It didn't allow me to work for other people after that, but I recognized it. So I never really built a team. I was a solo operator, an individual agent, because that was me, and that's okay. So recognize who you are, what you want, what your drivers are, and build it. Right? Then we'll go all games on you, but if you build it, it will come. Right? What you build, it matters, and what you build is unique to you. All right, so that's me. That's us, right? That's who you are. And congratulations to making it through 5 days of this training, which I know can be challenging to attend and challenging to digest and go through it all.
That's right.
Okay.
So today we're going to talk about Docusign. Okay, so we're going to build off of the opportunities that Jerry led in with yesterday, because the opportunity to do business or win business, right, is what we all strive for. You're in the lead generation business. A lot of the agents still look at that whiteboard or that process of being under contract as to when we start tracking things. When Jerry was coaching and talking to you yesterday about opportunities, and I would challenge you, the moment you have a conversation with somebody about doing something in real estate on a timetable, whether it's 12, 18, 24 months, create that opportunity, right? Look at your follow-up processes with them, because once you recognize that you're cultivating that relationship, get them in those early stages from a follow-up and structure standpoint, you'll do more business. There's too many things that get left on sticky notes and papers on desktops to follow up and call this person that never happened. Your systems have to be as solid from lead generation to contract to close to post-closing. You can't be strong at one of those. You have to be strong at all three. Jason Abrams talks about this. Hey, your transaction to close, which I was prideful of because I used to do this and I actually did it for agents for a little while, was solid. Contract to close, rock star, solid. Like nothing fell through the cracks. I knew everything that had to be done. Where I was not my strongest was follow-up, whether it was post-closing follow-up or following up because I met somebody. That's the most important part. That lead generation, staying in front of people. This system, these tools that Command is giving us allow you to do that in a structured way. It's not cold. You still got to make the calls. You still got to write the emails. You still got to send the texts. But from an organized structure, it allows you to do that and know what's happening in your world. And it only works if you take advantage of it. And whether it's our system or something else. And you only get out of it what you put into it. So I spent a lot of time to talk about organization and structure and consistency. And that takes time. Like, I am not the most organized person in the world. So getting structured is a challenge for me. I recognize that about myself. Get an accountability partner, have a PC coach, have somebody that's their strength, that they can check in with you daily, weekly, monthly, right? There are coaches for when you get and you're building bigger. I don't think everybody needs a coach from jump, but you should have a PC program to work with to hold you accountable to your systems and tools. Any questions on any of that? All right, let's jump in. My goal is to be done by about 10:30 today. So we're going to get you guys out a little bit early. My boys are on the road for hockey this weekend. And I'm going to get one of them out into a car. So I need to be done at 10:30, and that is our goal. Right, Dylan? He's literally pulling a George Costanza and sleeping under my desk at the moment. So let's share screen. Let's jump into Command. So you guys all log into Command today. And let's jump into Docusign first. So first and foremost, what you need to understand, what is Docusign, okay? Docusign is your digital library of all your contracts and the ability to get signatures and organize and structure and edit everything inside of Command or everything in your contract world. Now, the other thing to know is that Docusign is a portal. So they pull documents from what we call libraries, and all of your local boards, or a lot of the local boards, have different document sets. And not every local board has a relationship with Docusign. So your local market center will let you know, do they use Docusign or do they use ZipWorms or do they use something else? There are contracts and agreements that have to take place in that world, but the majority of our market centers in Virginia, West Virginia, do have the ability to leverage this tool. So just so you know where that's coming from. You have to have, you are all given a free Docusign account by belonging with KW. So you have to connect and create that Docusign account. So under your settings, right, click on your name, go to your drop down, go to settings. Right? We've done this a couple times now, so it should be straightforward. You're going to see a Docusign. Mine is already connected. Yours might or might not be connected. So you would click connect, create, and then it'll open up Docusign. It'll ask you to create an account with an email. Okay, so use your KW email. It'll ask you to create a password. It will then email you a handshake, right? Because we're used to that when we're connecting systems, there has to be a handshake that takes place from an authentication. So you'll receive an email saying confirming your Docusign account. Authorize. You'll click on that. You come back here. You click authorize again, and the two accounts talk to each other. That's where you need to start. Right. Once you have that in place, you can do everything you need to do. Create documents, create signatures, send things out, email, organize structure, get paid. Right. We all want to get paid. Jerry touched on that yesterday. Right. And an opportunity, there are things you have to do. Right. You have to have a contact. You have to create an opportunity. That opportunity has to have an offer associated. That offer has to be accepted in order for you to put in commissions. In order for them to pay you commissions, your broker has to prove that your documents are all up to snuff and appropriate. And that's the life cycle of what happens in our world. All right. So in order to get there, you have to create the documents. So Docusign is that tool for you. All right. So let's jump in and let's take a look. I'm just going to go to a context. So typically, I'm going to breeze through opportunity creation because you guys did this yesterday, but I want to start something from scratch for you just so you see the whole process, okay? So I'm just going to go to my son's account, who's always my practitioner here. Not you, Dylan, Connor. You're not old enough to buy a house yet. All right, so, well, he's older than you. All right, so Docusign. So now what I do is from the contact record, and this is what most people do. You can do it from opportunities directly, but most people are on a contact record when they're getting around to putting details in, right? So then we'll go ahead to opportunities. We'll create new. I am going to breeze through this. You'll put your market center. You can make sure you choose the proper type. That's incredibly important because otherwise you have to start all over again, right? Tags you have the ability to do custom tags. You give some basic information for contract to close. I'm just going to throw a date in here. Estimated price. Know your commission rates, what are standard for what you're getting paid on your sides, and in what phase are they going to drop into. Click create. All right, and then you'll see it right there on the contact page. Go into details. All right, now you saw this yesterday, okay? So you've got details, profile, marketing, documents. This is where we're going to go now, right? We've got to go to documents. We have to make Command and Docusign talk to each other, okay? Now, what's really important, besides creating the opportunity and choosing the right listing, buyer, lease, whatever that is, okay? The next most important thing is when you're going to create Docusign and make them talk to each other is to sync or start a transaction. You see that word right here, start a transaction? Does everybody see that? The reason that this is important is that handshake. Every time you create an opportunity, okay, you start a transaction in Docusign. And what that allows you to do in the future, when you're working on this transaction, you can actually go to Docusign directly and do work. You don't have to log in through Command, then go to Docusign. But the first time you go to work on an opportunity in Docusign, you have to go this way to make them talk to each other. This will allow you to import documents back and forth, upload them for commissions. Otherwise, you have to, if you build it directly in Docusign without setting this up first, okay, you have to download and upload. That same process, which I'll show you, right, would be similar if you don't use Docusign in your market center. If you use Authentisign or Transaction Desk or Dotloop, right, you can work in those platforms directly, download your documents and load them into the Documents tab. So we will talk about that. But the best, from a speed standpoint, is the Docusign Connection. So when I click Start a Transaction, what you're going to see here is it's going to jump and ask me to log into my Docusign account. I'm just gonna have to remember my password. It's been a long time. I used it.
Dave, can I ask a question while you're logging in?
Absolutely.
Good morning, everybody. I have I received DocuSign through like my emails. So if I were to go and register, since you said it was already free, I should be able to just log straight in and after I create my
You have to
password.
do it the way that I showed you, because there's a DocuSign account that's a generic DocuSign account, and then there's a DocuSign account that's provided by you to you from KW.
Okay.
That you are under the KW umbrella.
Okay, perfect.
You have to create an account through command. You can't have a standardized DocuSign account that you used to have and make that talk to our system. You have to use the KW version. Good question, though. Thank you.
Because I did connect. It is already connected. So
if you're already connected, you're good then.
Then go. Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just walked through that because not everybody is, right? Some market centers set them up, which is the way we do it typically. We'll set them up, jump, but it doesn't always happen or take, because it has to authenticate on the agent side, and sometimes the agents don't authenticate that piece, so you guys start over, which is okay.
Thank you.
David, quick question. Did you recommend, because I'm already connected, I've already had transactions, I'm just trying to honestly catch up.
Oh, that's okay. Great.
Do you recommend you go through opportunities, or you said you go through DocuSign?
You have to go through opportunities the first time.
Okay.
The first time you create a room, which is what we call the transaction inside of DocuSign, it's called DocuSign Rooms. You have to create it through command through the opportunity. After it's running for that opportunity, you can go directly to DocuSign and add docs, edit docs, create docs, counter docs. You don't have to go through command. You'll end up bringing those documents back to command. But the first time you create a new opportunity and a new room, you have to do it through command.
Can I ask you one more question, even though this might not be relevant?
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. Like I said, I have transactions going, and I've been basically having.
You're breaking up on me, having a hard time hearing
the transactions coordinator doing my documents because I'm so far. So if I need to
I'm sorry, Deborah.
in that,
Deborah.
I don't know what's wrong here because you keep going in and out too.
Yeah, Deborah, I don't know if that's me or you, but I cannot hear you. Is anybody else having trouble hearing Deborah, or is that just me?
No, I am too.
No, I was having, I'm having trouble hearing it too.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Let me
Deborah,
log out and I'll try to log back in.
No, it's a phone, I think.
No.
So it's been a while since I logged into DocuSign, so give me a second. It's giving me a hard time. Things that I should do before I do training sometimes. I just got the verification code. What are you doing? Tech happens, right? Sometimes typing it is best. All right, I was logged in anyways. Okay, here we go, perfect. All right, so now, right, I clicked start a transaction, and now from command side, I see go to transaction, right? So that's letting me know that that opportunity now exists as a room inside DocuSign. That's how you know if you have one or not, okay? Now what happens, right, every time I update that opportunity, I'll then have the ability to do what's called sync. I can update information if I've updated things on right inside the details portion of that. Details here to see if I just kind of put some information. You see how this all says synced? It's because letting me know that's talking to DocuSign. If I update information in here, let's sell this place. Right, so now I edited information here, and I go back to documents. It'll update that information, or it should, into the room. So details are important. So the more details you have in the opportunity, those details will come over to DocuSign for you, right? When you click on this details page, what you'll see on the first page is contact information for you, your consumer, any prices you may have put in there, right? Expected closing periods, purchase prices, right? So on the right-hand side, you'll see buyer and seller information, listing agent information, and then when you have a buyer or a buyer's agent, then you'll be able to input their information too. Notice that I did say I was going to do a listing this time. So I'm just kind of truncating. Not a fan of the way this page lays out, but you kind of get a hang of it, right? So always be updating opportunities when you can, sync that transaction to here, and it comes across. All that detailed information, what that does is that populates the contracts for you, right? The whole thing is about speed. How quickly can I fill out a contract properly? Now, look, you guys all have boot camp and different types of contract classes in your market center that you have to take, right?
Yep.
All right, good answer. I was going to say, somebody please say yes. So I'm not going to teach you how to write a contract. Teach you how to use the tools that essentially are the contract, okay? So when we go to documents now, right, make sure your details are up to snuff. We got to add documents. Now, I want to go back to my, so just look at something real quick. Oh, I forgot to do this. Listing. All right, so now when I go to add a document, it's going to ask me where am I going to get these documents from? For you guys using DocuSign, you're going to choose DocuSign. If you're using zip forms in your market center, you can choose zip forms. If you're using something else, then you're probably not going to. Dot loop also syncs here. I don't know if some market centers are still doing that, but this is DocuSign, guys. I'm going to choose DocuSign forms. And what you're going to see, now understand what you're seeing on my screen is not necessarily what you're going to see on your screen. One, because of the market center end, two, because of the boards that I belong to. So the contract documents are going to be different, right? GCAR, DAR, NAR, NVR, VAR, CAR, MAR. I'm not just making up Scrabble word names here. Those are all board abbreviations, okay? So if you belong to any of those, you're going to see different document sets. And your market center has uploaded all those documents for you. They're all in there by name. My market center, because of when I'm affiliate, has DC, Maryland, Virginia docs. So I just have to go to where I'm licensed. This particular one is a Virginia document, right? So I'm going to go into a Virginia listing set. And what it's going to do for me, it's going to show me all the documents that I need. It's going to select them all, right? I check the box. So I need all these documents, right? I need a property disclosure. I need exclusive right to sell. I need the ABA, which is a market center doc. Most offices have what we call an affiliated business association, which means your office has a relationship with a title company or a mortgage company. So in our offices, we have to sign those things, okay? Kingston, you know, that's confusing because it's Kingston and Kingston. I didn't change it, all right? Listing amendment, I don't need that from Jump. Lead-based paint, when do you need lead-based paint?
Anything built in
1978.
78 or
Hey, just checking. I'm not a broker, but I just make sure you guys are on your toes. All right, so there we go. Then I would go ahead and add the selected documents. And I'll see them in my folder or in my room. I got to choose the right terminology, right? I'm in my room. It's called a room, right? So I have all these documents in here now. And then I would just fill out the documents, right? So if I'm taking exclusive right to list, I'm going to fill out that contract. If I'm working with a buyer and I'm I'm filling out a representation document, I'm going to fill that out, right? This is not the contract class. This is the filling out class, but you'll see a lot of my default information did populate in here already, because where did it come from?
Your profile.
Oh,
And
my
detail setting.
But inside of DocuSign, where did it come from? I didn't know.
Your opportunity.
Right, the opportunity pushes to details. There's a details page, and that detail page is what funnels across to all the contracts. It fills in as much data as it can. Some of it you just don't know until you're taking a listing or working with the buyer. Okay. Now there is a way, and we're not going to jump into it today because it's more advanced, but for those that have been in the business, there is a thing called templates. So once you figure out contracts and you're comfortable with contracts and you find that you're writing contracts predominantly the same way every time, you can write and create a listing template, right? And then you're not filling it as many boxes. So that is something that your Market Center tech trainer can teach you more directly as I do classes on DocuSign. For the sake of time, I keep it simple today, but just so you know, there is the ability to create custom templates that are specific to you in your business. Okay. All right. So for all intents and purposes, this now becomes a contract, right? You guys fill this out, give it all the additional details that you need to do. Now take notice at the bottom of the page, there are signature blocks, but there are no signatures or no signature fields, right? So that's step 2. You fill out your contract, you fill out all the documents that you need to fill out, right? You would save and close that. And now you have to send them for signature, right? That means I got to send it out to my client. They have to sign documents, right? They have to agree to the terms that we agreed and we wrote everything. So then what you do now is you take whatever documents you're sending to your client, it could be all of them, or it might just be this one. Then we have a secondary navigation bar that opens up. Okay. And then underneath here, you're going to see I can copy if I need to make do. I can move it to another folder if I've created multiple folders. I could send an email. Email is a great function for later. Like once I've ratified a contract, there are people I need to send my documents to, right? I got to send a copy to an executed document to my consumer. I got to send an executed document to the title company. I got to send an executed document to the lender, right? They all have to have this. So you can email them directly the executed documents from here in DocuSign. Creating an envelope is what you're actually doing. It's like putting something in the mail. You guys remember those days? Does anybody still put things in the mail with stamps? It's like one check I have to write every month. I still have to put in the mail. Driving me crazy. I still have to buy stamps in today's world. Anyways, this is like putting something in the mail. Okay. You're going to send it off to them. So you're going to create an envelope to mail it to them. Orlando, you okay? I can see.
I'm fine.
Oh, what's he talking about? I can see the temple, the vein in your head is just kind of like pulsing.
No, I'm good.
All right, excellent. So now you're in the envelope to create the envelope. So at the top, what I will recommend that you do is you name the envelope, okay? And you need to do this every time that you're going to send something out for signatures for organization and consistency for you. Otherwise, it's going to say, please DocuSign. Every time you send something in your folder, it's just going to say, you send an envelope that said, please DocuSign. So think of this as an email subject, right? Call it what it is: listing docs, buyer docs, counter docs, right? HUD, whatever it is, name this envelope, because you're going to have multiple envelopes per transaction. Then you're going to see the documents are there. If you missed a document, like I just uploaded one, you can always go, I can click room docs. It'll show me all the documents and I can say, hey, you know what? I forgot. I also need the lead-based paint disclosure. Let me throw that in the envelope so my client can sign that, okay? Now below that, you're going to see add recipients to envelope. There are 3 options here: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email address, okay? Pre-tagged roles is the one that you're going to typically use the most when you're starting from scratch, especially when you're working with listers or buyers or sellers, right? Because you would have put their information on the details tab and identified them as seller 1, seller 2, buyer 1, buyer 2. Does that make sense? So those are pre-tagged roles. It recognizes the roles from the form. What are they called? Right? Seller 1 right? He needs to sign a document, and who would sign it? In this particular case, I made Connor seller one. So I choose him from the dropdown. So it'll know and identify where Connor's supposed to sign. Now, I will also tell you that on a listing contract, my broker needs to sign it as well, right? So when I check that, now, however, in this case, my broker is not on this list, and nor will you see your broker on this list. So instead of selecting somebody, I just tell the system that my broker does need to sign this document as a placeholder. It'll create a spot where the broker will sign. And I'm going to show you how to assign it to your broker here in a second. All right. I'm going to click add selected. Right. So now we're going to see the two people that have to sign things in this document. Listing contracts are my seller and my broker. The seller's information is there, right? The broker's information is not. So what I do is I put their name in here and their email address. This is my broker. And if you're in Kingstown, Falls Church, or Fredericksburg, then she's also your broker, right? The rest of you will have your own. Different brokers, different market centers, okay? Now, also what I have here is control levels. They need to sign, they need a view, they receive a copy. Another way that if I wanted to send something, I control what their access is. If they need to sign it, they're gonna have to be able to sign it. If I wanted to just send it to them, again, like a title company or a lender, I'm just gonna give them a copy of the document. Now, what's really cool here is what we call order of operations. If you've been in the business a little while, you've used other systems, then you would understand this mindset that, hey, once I send this to Orlando and he signs it, the next person in line will receive the document, maybe it's Samantha, and then she will be prompted to sign it because Orlando has just completed this, right? And then once Samantha signs it, it comes back to me as an executed document. Or maybe it automatically goes on to the lender or the cooperative agent because everything's been signed. It's an automatic process for you to make your lives easier. So you're not like waiting, oh, I need Orlando to sign it. It comes back, then I have to turn around and send it to Samantha. And then I got to turn around, I got to send it to Vicky. Order of operations makes your life easier. Now, when you create this envelope, you see one here, one here. That's the order of operations, okay? Who's going to sign in what order? It does matter, okay? If I had two sellers, I could send it both to them at the same time. Seller one, seller two, I could send them the documents to both sign first, as long as they have different email addresses, right? If you're sending to, now there's a couple of things in play here. One, you open yourself up and your consumers open yourself up to scrutiny if they're signing as Samantha and signing as Orlando, but both using the same email address, because that email address is your authentication piece, okay? The system does allow you to do that. There's a tracking cookie and an IP address on the back end that tracks these things, but I highly, 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 highly encourage you, and your broker will practically demand it of you, that you use different email addresses for different people. Right? So if you have a husband and wife and they only have one family address, maybe create a free one for them or download and print, because you can download and print too, right? I have to know your audience too, right? I kind of breezed over that. Not everybody's comfortable with digital signatures, right? We live in a world where it's common practice. We also live in a location in Virginia that there is a lot of people that go, right? So I used to think it was an age thing, a generational thing of trusting technology. That's not the case. I've had kids in their 20s and adults in their 70s agree and disagree to utilize electronic signatures. So know your audience and have those questions when you're having your consults, right? All the way back in the beginning about how you run your business. And then are they okay with that? Because they might not be. And it's better off knowing then than sending them something under a time constraint where you need a signature and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. So disclose up front how you do your business and adjust, right? And knowing that you have options because you can print these. I've had a lot of clients call me, or I've had agents call me that their consumers are upset because they refuse to use DocuSign, and the agent didn't know well enough to know that there are alternatives to digital signatures. So again, informing yourself is important, right? All right. Sorry, I try to cover as much information as can because these things come up in real life, right? Now, seller one, seller two, they can both sign an order. If it's a different seller but same email address, change them to seller one and seller two in signing order, because that allows them to both sign differently. They can't both sign at the same time if you're using the same email address. The second person will never see it. So if they're using the same email address, which I don't encourage, and your broker won't encourage, I'm changing the order of flow. Any questions there? Does that make sense? Is it clear as mud? All right. Now, in this particular case, I had one seller and then my broker. So what I do is I have my seller sign it, and then I have my broker sign it. So my seller's going to sign everything first, and then it's automatically going to go to my broker, who's going to be able to sign it and review my listing contract, which makes my life easier, and hers, because she can go through when she goes through, like she's getting dozens and dozens of contracts every day, right? So this makes her life easier. Now at the bottom is an email. So basically this is, even though at the top I told you to name this, it's like your subject on your side. You need to create it. And when this spits out, this is going to be an email to your consumer. Don't worry about the secondary email, like if it's going to a broker or somebody. Address the email subject to the signee, right? Listing docs. Discussed. Joe, here's the listing docs. Boy, I spell like crazy when I'm not looking. Joe, here's the listing docs. Notice what I say here. I'll call you to walk through it. This is really important to understand. Really, really important to understand. Again, I'm not your broker, but I am looking out from you to go into realtor jail. Okay. The great thing about digital signatures is it speeds up the process. The most dangerous thing about digital signatures is that it speeds up the process, and agents don't do their due diligence. What do I mean by that? They send them a contract and the clients sign it, and they've never walked them through it. Don't be that person, because if something goes wrong, who are they going to blame? Sabrina, who are they going to blame?
Me.
Yeah, right. Who's going to have to file a claim, right? Who's going to have to file an insurance claim? Who's going to have to go before the board? Stuff goes wrong that you maybe had nothing to do with, but I assure you they will blame you. Walk your clients through the contract. Make a journal entry on your calendar that I sent Mark the contract, and we walked through it from 10:15 to 10:30. Now look, I understand speed and the necessary things to do things, but the moment you take a shortcut, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, or next year, you open yourself up to potential liability, because we've given you the right to write a legal document. I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want to scare you, but I want to scare you just enough to take it seriously. Right, Shirley? See if she's paying attention. So this is important. Every time you send your clients a document, sign it, on the phone with them and talk them through it. Even as mundane, as simple as it is, document that communication. Hey, here's that adjusted price that we did. Just want to make sure you see that. It's on line 12. Sign there. It'll come right back to me. Listing contracts. I went through, I listed everything on your house that we discovered on the walkthrough, right? The shed on the yard, the garage door openers, the kitchen. Am I missing anything? Does this look okay? Does anything look wrong? Is there anything that we didn't discuss that's not conveying with the property? Remember, you had that bathroom mirror that your grandmother gave you, or that chandelier that you put in last year, but you were going to swap back out for the original. Do that before the listing happens and goes live, because people will ask for that otherwise. These are just real life examples that I've had to deal with, honestly. You'd be surprised when people will turn around and take out of their house, like, well, I never meant to include that, because that one thing, as mundane as it is, will become a point of contention later when they swapped it out. Right? So you've been in the business, you know what I'm talking about. Hey, where'd that chandelier go? Or hey, where was that bathroom mirror? That was great. That was the whole reason I bought this house, and now it's gone. telling you, crazy shit happens. People lose their minds. Any questions on creating the envelope at this page? Order of operations, clarity. Okay. Now we've set the table to send something to my clients. I'm going to hit next. Now, when I hit next, it is still not emailing anything yet. Now what it's doing is it's opening up the documents that I'm going to send. Now you've already filled them out, right? So now mine are going to be blank because I didn't put anything in them, but you've already filled them out to send them out for signature. This is your last chance to review them or make any necessary changes before you send it out to your consumer. This is one last look. Now also, if this, now in the beginning of the process, you're filling in blank forms, you're just adding initials. You're further in the contract, right? You're countering, you're negotiating the contract, you're striking out, you're replacing, you're writing on top of it. You do that here, right? You receive a counter from another broker, you upload it to your room, right? You got to edit it because you're going to change the price for your consumer or whatever. And then they're going to, that all happens here. This is where your editing tools are. Okay, so let me just kind of show you that. On the left-hand side, you see your editing tools. I can add signatures. I can add initials. Now, in this particular document, you'll see there are initials at the bottom already. Because when I created the form, okay, for the seller to sell their property and list, and for the broker to sign, and I gave it those roles, seller one, right? Remember we signed that, and listing broker. So it knows where they're supposed to sign on these documents. So it adds those initial fields for them so you don't have to. You just walk through it and make sure everything is where they are because sometimes tech happens. Now, if I'm editing this document or if I'm countering a document because price or whatever, right? Let's pretend we're, and I make a change to the document, right? We just come down here, right? I had the listing, listing price. I didn't even listing price would be there, but let's pretend this was a purchase price. So let's forget that this is a listing doc. I'm sorry, but for sake of time, let's pretend this is a contract. And let's pretend that this says 500,000 and the listing was 700,000. So we're a counter. So what I would do is I would put a line, click this little pencil here. There's pre-fill tools. Change things around a little bit. I love when they change formatting on me. I could put a line in there. What did it here? Right, I could strike a line, right? So if I needed to strike out, and then I need to add the other price, right? Then I add a text box. Right, and then I'm gonna say, actually the price to be $650. What happens anytime I make a change to a contract? What has to happen?
Signatures.
We have to put a signature on it.
You got an initial. Even if it's on a listing initial,
Yeah,
list,
initial.
even if it's in a list, an original listing contracts, if you make a change anywhere in the body, they have to initial it, right? So what I would do here, remember at the bottom, the initials are there, but I made a change up here. So I come back to the standard fill tools and I add the initial box next to it. Now you can size this, so you can make it a little smaller, right, for the sake of space. Some people like to use lines to do crosshairs. Or you've been in the business a little while. Some people like that organizational structure of putting crosses and putting initials where they belong. Right. So you have the ability to do that and edit. And this is where you will edit, especially in a counter offer situation. So you're going to want to go in here. What I highly recommend, right, like I did with Connor, is you go in and you create a dummy opportunity. You go in and create a dummy listing. You go in and create a dummy buyer's opportunity, and you play with the tools. Send them to yourself. Send them to each other. Partner up. I saw you guys, which I loved on day one, is you guys just started talking to each other. Now, I don't know if some of you are in the same market centers or not, but you're getting to know each other. Send each other offers. Right? Sabrina, send Orlando a contract. Orlando, send Vicky a contract. And just counter each other and play with them. So you see what they look like coming in email. So you see what they look like when you're signing. So you see what you look like when you're editing. Because the only way to get comfortable with these tools is to use them. Right? here's what I will tell you happens a lot of times. And I'm glad that you're here today, and you won't do this because you're gonna do as I say, which I appreciate. However, not all agents do as instructed. Okay. So what happens is they don't come to class, and then they have to write a listing, and then they have to write a buyer agreement, and they don't know how because they didn't come to Dave's class, or they didn't come to Shirley's class. Sabrina, you're laughing because you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I didn't want to miss yesterday, but I had my first appointment.
Awesome. And then what do? They try to get a hold of me at 11 o'clock on a Friday night or 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And unfortunately, my butt's probably freezing in a hockey rink somewhere. And the ability for me to walk you through and writing a contract at that point, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, now it's not that I don't respond to calls. Okay, it's not that I don't phone. However, if there's somebody in that class and they're like, hey, something's really messed up and they're wrong, I'm going to follow up soon because you're doing your best. You've been there, you've showed up. And the people that don't show up and then all of a sudden their problems don't become my problems. Okay. Their problems don't become my problems. And agents love to pass the buck. So I'm saying, take your time. Please, this is important, right? Writing contracts. Sabrina, you have to write a listing agreement? Awesome, right? That's a great place to set. It's going to take you longer the first time you do it. So I'm encouraging you to do some test cases to shorten that educational window for yourself because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be confused. You're going to get lost. And I get that. And I understand. And I sympathize. And I will support you, as will your Market Center tech traders. You help and you self-advocate yourself. We'll be there right with you. That's fair, right? I like to set the expectation. So Emma, don't be calling me on a Sunday morning. Call Drew. Call Sheila. Don't call me.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I'll probably be on the soccer field anyway come March. So
There you go. Me too. I'll be coaching soccer at that point. Yeah, I'm a nut job. Hockey and soccer. That's my life. And real estate. But real estate allows me to fund that. And that gives me the flexibility to do that. It's important. All right. Editing. Now, the one other thing I do want to show you is that did you notice that there are different colors here on this page? There are yellow, right? The first one is yellow. So that's recognizing that's where Connor signs, right? He's seller 1. Seller 2 is Shannon. So all that editing that I did first, and when I added initials and it added Connor, right? If I need to add Shannon, I have to toggle to her. Or if it was seller 2, I need to toggle to them. Or, nobody asked this question, but it usually comes up. What you'll notice in opportunities and what you'll notice on the details page is that it only asks for or allows for two buyers or 2 sellers. Sometimes you have 3, 4, 5. I've had as many as 7 people involved in a transaction that had to sign a document, right? So in the envelope, or I'm sorry, in the pre-envelope, I can add more people. I can't add them the details. I can't add them to the rooms, but I can create seller 3, seller 4, seller 5, type in their name, their email address, and then give them signing abilities. But that only happens on that previous page where I added everybody. I can add more buyers and sellers. At some point in time, that will happen to you, that you will recognize, hey, I have more than the allotted fields allow for. So you just kind of have to create them and add them and make space for them. Because most of your contracts, not all contracts allow for more than 2 people to sign. So you kind of have to make spots for them. So I always like to point that out, that if you need more than 2, you go in and you create them, but they won't be there from jump, okay? But
so
when
I have a question about that. So like let's say you got to this page and then you're like, shoot, I didn't add the second seller or the third seller or whatever. Can you go back and then
see at the bottom here, it says back.
yeah. And then you go back and add them to the envelope.
Yep.
And then when you go back to the document, do you see a third color or
Yep.
fourth color?
Yes, you do. Right. I can come right here. I jumped right back. I can click add recipient. And in this particular case, they would not, maybe they're, I'll just give them a Pretagged Role. But if maybe they did, I could say, hey, this is seller 3. And there isn't anybody here, right? So I need to just put that blank because they're not in there. It'll drop here. Oh, I see what happened there. It jumped in my order. And I'm glad you asked that question, because here's another real life example that's happened to me more times than I can count. So husband and wives can buy multiple properties and take ownership either jointly or individually. And when they're investing, you can take ownership more individually than you can jointly. So I will have husband and wives, significant others, whatever, say, hey, I'm going to take ownership, not Olivia. And then when it comes to actually writing the contracts, I get a call from Orlando who goes, hey, remember that I told you my wife wasn't going to be on the contract? Yeah, we need to add her. She wasn't going for it. She's going to be on top of it. No problem. Right. In this example, just like Emma asked, I was already writing the contract. I would go back and I would add her. Right. And now I see multiple people here and I go back and edit the document. So I tell you, you're going to laugh. The first time this happens, you'd be like, oh, Dave said this was going to happen. Because they lie, they don't lie, but their intentions are good, but they make mistakes all the time. They always ask, is everybody that's going to be assigning or involved in purchase transaction present? And they'll say yes. And they're like, oh yeah, we need to add my wife or my husband or my significant other, whatever that looks like, right? Okay, so that's editing, right? You'll see there are different tools, drop downs. You're controlling the box, radio buttons, right? They're the click on, click off, little circles, right? Check boxes, similar. And when you add text boxes to it, particularly, so if I added a text box, you remember in this particular contract, I added this text box here at 650. Okay, now you'll see the text box was created, right? So what I want to do is I say all recipients will see that, right? And then I go, okay, but everybody needs to sign it. So Joe Smith also needs to initial that change. So he signs it too, so that when he signs, it's there. Sometimes it might be a block. Let's take this text box. So remember, I wrote 615 here. Maybe this particular client, I could leave that blank for them. Maybe they haven't decided. Hey, I'm not sure if I'm going to do 650 or 700, and I'll send a blank. I'm like, all right, slip on it, fill it in. All right, so they can then fill in the blocks. I can assign it to them too. So you've
Ask
got.
a random question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is it called a radio button?
I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if it's radius, like for round, about radio. That's if I had to guess, that's where I'm putting money on. But it's not that much different than a checkbox. Like these are checkboxes, right? So I could add a checkbox. Now, typically you're going to fill this in on the form. It's a lot easier filling these checkboxes on the form than they are here. But sometimes things get missed, right? So I'll add, hey, I forgot to put this check. Oh, I don't want to check that on the checkbox. I forgot to put that they had an alarm, right? And I'll check it for them. Right. And now what happens is you say, hey, I need this to change. It needs to be checked, but I don't need all 4 people to check this, right? I can make it a read only. And then I can have Connor do it, right? I can assign the first signee to check that box. And then when they sign it, everybody else will see it. So not everybody will need to check it, only one person. So typically what happens when you add things from the signing, because you're making changes, it'll populate the first person. If you're asking them to do it, they can do it. And then everybody else will see it. If I send it to everybody at the same time, okay, let's say I sent this document, Emma, to you and Orlando at the same time to sign this document, but there were a couple of checkboxes that needed to be checked. Orlando will see them and you won't, because you're receiving them at the same time. Now on the executed contract, they'll all be there, but when you're signing, you might not see them. So I get those calls a lot too. Hey, I sent this out to so-and-so, and the second person, I'm like, it's order of operations. Only one person's going to see it first. So be conscious in your mind. If you're making changes and somebody has to do something, make that second signer 2, so everything happens and they see it in the up and clear. Very common mistake, happens all the time. Sound good? All right, so now everything's done, everything's edited, everything's where it should be, right? You can preview this document. What does this look like when my client sees it? That's what that preview button does. So if you want to look at it, and this view is great, especially for when you're new, is because this is the experience. They're going to receive an email from Docusign to sign something. They're going to click. It's going to open just like this. This is what they would see when they open the contract, right? It's going to say start, right? And you can actually walk through this. If I click start, it's going to jump to that person. Now, I'm not actually signing as that person, but I'm faking it. Okay. Next. So I could see that the initials are everywhere they should be, especially if I made modifications to the contract, right? It's jumping me to each spot in the transaction to sign. Now, here's what's really important. While this is you walking through it, this is also the consumer's experience. So what does that mean? And why did I tell you to walk through the contract on the previous page? Because if you just send this to the consumer and they start signing, are they reading the contract or are they just jumping and signing? Let's be real about that.
It's just signing.
They're just signing, right? And what you see here, next, is exactly what they're doing. You're going to get a contract back in moments. Protect yourself, please. Let them know you're going to get a document. Don't sign it. Yeah, I'm going to call you. We're going to walk through it. And then you're going to have this on your side and they're going to have this on their side, right? And you're going to tell them exactly what they're signing. This is page 1. This is the property details page. This is page 2. This is where your price and everything that conveys is. Remember we talked about the mirror? I subtracted that out. I wrote that out. The fridge, the ice box, that's here. Right? Here's our as-is marketing agreement. You tell them what they're signing. Because if you don't, you open yourself up. I'm passionate about this for you guys. And I want it to be true. You can change your view here from desktop to tablet to phone, right? Just so you can see what it looks like on their side, because they can't actually sign from their phone. The problem with phone is even worse, because then they're definitely just signing, because they're not reading this thing on their phone. They're just signing. Boop, 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 boop. Now it's convenient. If I just need a price change or an adjustment on a counter, sign it. Great. Actual listing documents, I really want to make sure that they are looking at the document and signing. Okay. I could save and close if I didn't want to send, and I can just go. I'm not going to hit send because I don't need to email this to anybody, but that's the process. Actually, I just hit send. See, I'm missing stuff. So I'm not going to do that. So I would hit send, and then the emails would go out in sequential order. I would be able to open an envelope. I could cancel an envelope. I could edit an envelope if I realize I missed something. Here's the challenge. Once something has been signed, it's executed. Right. So if I sent something out and it had multiple signatures on it and seller 1 signed it and I realized it was a mistake or a spelling or price change was wrong, I can't go in and change that because seller 1 already signed it. So I'd either have to delete it on my end or reopen up the envelope and that document and then resend it to seller 2 and 3, right? There's just some editing things that's going to happen to you, but understand that I can terminate an envelope, I can recreate an envelope, I can edit an envelope. But if any action's been taken in that envelope that requires multiple signatures, you're going to have to delete and start over to resend the document. I think that makes sense. Once you have a signature, it's locked in, right? Digital signatures are allowed. So understanding how all that happens is important. So close this.
So in the case of a counter offer, you've created the document, you've sent it, your client has signed it, and then you've sent it to the listing broker,
Yep.
and they come back with a counter. So then you're going to take the original document and just create a duplicate basically and just make some changes.
Yeah, so what happens is, and so you see how these are all stamped blue forms, right? That means it's a Docusign form. It was created from scratch. It was based off the forms that we provided for you, okay? Now, once they've been signed and executed, and I'll pull open some other rooms here just so you guys can see, they're going to change. There'll be a green one that's stamped signed. So they'll say exclusive right to sell, signed. So instead of blue form, it'll be green and signed. Right, so you know you've got a new version of that, right? If I had countered it, then I would have one that says signed. It's been countered, and you can rename them, right? Say ratified, which I do recommend. When you end up with a ratified final, you rename it to ratified final and things like that. On this page, right? This is like And in that particular case, remember when they emailed you back a counter, where did that, or if they wrote you an offer, where did you receive that offer? Did you receive it in DocuSign? Where did you receive it?
Usually an email.
Email, right? So what I would do is I have to add documents to my DocuSign room from my computer, right? So I would download that document to my computer and upload it. And believe it or not, you can actually email it directly to DocuSign room because there's an inbox. Every room has an inbox and you have an email address for DocuSign. David Donaldson at mail.docusign.net. You can all go to there. You can take that email address and you could just forward, right, that email that you received from the offer and email it directly into the room without having to download it and upload it. I could just email it directly into my inbox. Okay. Here's a little trick. Again, this will fall into the test case for you guys play around with this. You can actually take this email address, okay, and then the room number. If I come back to my rooms, you see each of your rooms are numbered. This is what I was working on here, right? See this ID number? If I create an email, I forward an email to my David Donaldson at mail.docusign.com. And in the subject line, I put the room ID number. It'll take those emailed docs and put it right in the room. You like that, Emma? I saw your eyebrows go up. You like that one? Most people don't get comfortable with that. And they're just like, I'm just going to download, upload. The problem with that is time. Download, create a folder, save, go find it, go add from computer, upload it, put it in. Now, go into your inbox, make a note, or just remember to go here every time, right? Get your email address for DocuSign, go forward that email to your email address and put the room ID number in the subject, and all those documents will come in. That's sweet, right? Yeah, it is.
Well, and for me, I always find that like I'll download stuff to my computer for a variety of reasons. And then like a year later, I'm like, oh God, it's going to take me forever to go through all this stuff and delete the stuff off my computer that I don't need anymore.
And they're on your downloads folder, right? Exactly right. So this is just, again, so remember now, DocuSign always, we're putting things in the cloud. They're always accessible to you. Also, when you ratify contracts, you're going to have them in command. So they're going to be in 2 places for you. And then honestly, for repetitious purposes, it might make sense for you at the end of the transaction to download all those documents on your own and save them somewhere, because you have to hold on to them too. So I do recommend that you do that. And we'll show you that here in a minute when we jump back into command. But I want you guys to be comfortable with everything that's in here, right?
You have to download every single document that was, going on with the transaction, or just the final
I do
one?
I do the ratified docs. Anything that was signed, that's a final version. I don't doubt some people save everything. I personally do not, but I'm not a broker. You'll see here, I'm just going to show you some additional editing tools here. If I select on the document, you see that I can edit, I could split it. When you upload a PDF, and this will happen a lot of times, you would receive that offer back from another agent, right? You're going to have like 60 pages of documents. Some of it you need, some of you don't not. You upload it as a single thing here. You can actually go in here and split that document. And now this just happens to be the contract, but let's pretend this was 60 pages of a PDF that's been signed, and you're going to have in here. You're going to have a copy of an escrow check. You're going to have a copy of the listing. You're going to have a copy of the contract. You're going to have a copy of anything else they wanted to send you that you don't need. Okay, so you can split those out, because when you're loading them back into command, you don't bulk load. You want to actually, I want the contract here. I want the escrow here. I want the addendum here. I want these other documents, which I don't need. I throw them in a miscellaneous folder. So the ability to split out these documents is really simple. So you come over here and I'll say, hey, you know what? This is my EMD. I'm just making stuff up here, right? And that's actually page 7 was the EMD. And then this is actually the ratified contract of 1 through 6, 8 through 12, because they put them in the wrong order, right? Agents are great at putting things out of order or upside down. you can actually rotate the documents here. If they scan in upside down, you can scan them and twist them around. Then I hit save. All right, so now you'll see here, I've got the EMD, which is a PDF version, and my ratified contract. And then what I do, under actions, I'll add a folder. Okay, so now I have a secondary folder, and I'll take the 2 ratified docs. Put a folder in the current room, and I'll put them in the ratified docs folder. So now I've got 2 folders, one with my executed ratified documents and one with my original forms. Just different ways to play around with things, right? Organization, people like to be organized and look at things differently. And that matters because when I'm going to get documents and load them into Command, which we'll do here in a second, I can say, go pull the documents from the ratified contract folder. I don't have to be sorting through all the folders to find all my docs. Organization consistency is your friend, right? We hit on that time and time again. I think what else am I missing here? All right, before we jump back to load, I want to share with you guys a couple things, and I want you guys to bookmark and take notice of this, okay? One, obviously, this class is recorded like all of them. I know Shannon, who's the broker, she does a tremendous class. There are probably people in your market centers that also do classes, okay? Inside of KW, or inside of Command, I'm sorry, there's a marketplace. I don't know if you guys have gone fishing in the marketplace yet, but there's the marketplace for you, okay? And inside the marketplace, KWRI also provides Docusign training. Okay, now, I'm good, but I do recommend that you guys have this additional training at your disposal. Maybe you want to go do it and hear from somebody else, because not any one trainer does things the same way, right? And they'll actually walk you through things when you have a live contract too. So if you actually go in here and you search for Docusign in the marketplace, okay, you'll see this from contract to close, finish your first transaction. Few details. Buy now, but it's free. See, one user. And it tells you just there, submit your Docusign documents with your market center. They're going to walk you through your first transaction. Look, Sabrina's can't believe this, or she's really yawning. I'm not sure what's happening there. She's either yawning or a huge aha for her. I'm going to go with the aha, not yawning. Okay, Sabrina? That's just between you and I. So I recommend that this is there for you guys to take advantage of. And then there are, so that's contract to close. There's dive into details, which is kind of like level 2. Like I talked to you guys about template training and things like that. It's great if you get that in your market center. The cool thing about these trainings are they're at your disposal. So you could schedule the training at a time that works for you, right? So you're not waiting for somebody, waiting for me to put on a class, someone in your market center to put on a class. You can sign up with the enablement team and they will schedule time that's specific to you. And sometimes there's other people there, but it's not as much as a group setting as this is, right? And then if you get really good at it, maybe you're a transaction coordinator. I don't see Kevin's assistant here. You can actually get Docusign certified, right? Maybe you're on administrative staff and you're on your team, or your administrative staff and your market center. You can actually go get a Docusign certification, become that go-to person and train, right? So I've done that. Shirley's on the call. She's done that. Other people have done that. Market center tech trainers, some of them have done that. Remember earlier when I told you there's no limit to what you want to do? When I first started training, I had an agent in my class who took, and this is actually one of the most flattering things that's ever happened to me. She was in the class that I was teaching. It was actually a dot loop class, which was an old system we used to use. And she went through that class and realized through taking, now one of two ways, it was flattering or eye-opening. After taking my class, she realized she wanted to be an instructor. So she went and got certified for her market center because that added value to her and her world and to her market center. It made her a master of the platform for her business. Remember day one, I said I became an instructor because I needed to know how to do things. So I volunteered to train and learn. Maybe you get on that same path. That's what she did. Now, either I just wasn't that good and she realized she could do it better, or I was that good and she realized she wanted to be like Dave. I choose the latter, right? We used to say, be like Mike. I'm in the instructor world. I'm okay with be like Dave. It's all good. Some of you are laughing. Some of you are like, this guy's a nut job. Thanks for laughing. Thanks for playing along, Emma. So it's important you guys know these are there. Secondly, do you remember I told you there was a system that we have, which essentially is Google for command? Do you guys remember what that was called?
Answer, KW answer.
Answers.kw.com, right? So that should be bookmarked. You guys should have this bookmarked because this should be the first place you guys go for help all the time. Now, I just sent in a request and they said that they were honored. So we'll see what happens. On this homepage, you see command, command app, command team, command MC, they're quick links to articles and help pages. I asked that they add one for Docusign. Maybe they'll do it. If you see one at someday, you'll know that, hey, that's there because Dave asked it for us. Who knows? But if you just jump to commands, I'll ask that they add it here because there's all these hot links for the different applets. I asked that they add a Docusign link here too. But if I just search for Docusign, okay, what I do is I actually go here, I pick any article and I go to Docusign. And then, so now I see all these Docusign articles and I'll put this in chat. I recommend that you guys bookmark this because that'll take you directly to Docusign because we don't have a hot link for it yet, but you can search by topic. And then all these walkthrough pages, right? How do I do this? How do I do that? Remember, some people learn by watching, some people learn by doing, some people learn by reading. This is at your disposal. And then I love that it's all these suggestive articles that are also showing you how to do things. Some of their, like those GIFs, I can believe it just said GIF. It's actually a GIF and I get mad about that. These GIFs, damn, this is even more recorded. These GIFs are automated, so they're kind of showing you step by step of what's happening in the back end. So knowing where to get help after you leave this class is of utmost importance to you. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. So now, right, if I come back to command, I have this transaction, right? Everything in Docusign, let's just pretend things have been signed, right? So now I'm back in command, I'm back in my opportunity, I'm back in the documents tab, okay? Now, the first half here was, if I'm using command and I'm using Docusign, they talk to each other. If I don't, I still have to do things here. Now, if I don't have Docusign connected, I won't see this attached files from Docusign. It'll just say, choose documents from my computer, right? So if you're using another system, this is what you'll see because it won't recognize Docusign. So then I would say, hey, all right, I'm using Transaction Desk, I'm using .loop, I'm using Authentisign, whatever, which means they're on your desktop or they're somewhere or another system. So you would download and you would upload those documents from your computer. And on the left here, what you see is you have a Virginia listing. It's broken down into listing, contract, and close, right? Because those are the stages of a transaction. This one's a listing. So this is telling me all the documents that are required by my market center for me to take a listing. Right? Every market center is different. Every board's different without the document types. But for me in Falls Church, I'm going to bounce back to Docusign. Here's the full list of everything I have to have. Some of them are marked required and some are conditional, right? Depending on the type of transaction that I'm doing. Required versus conditional, depending on the transaction. And then as you move along, once you're under contract, here are the required under contract documents. Once I go to closing, here are the closing documents. These are built by your market center brokerage for how they upload documents. So they all look a little bit differently. But this is why I told you it was important that have this document split. Because when they're split, see now I see the two different folders in my room. Remember I told you I created that ratified and I created a second folder. If you don't create a second folder, everything will be in room docs. If I have a ratified folder, when I click ratified docs, I can go right in here and I can go get I wrote ratified agreement, but that would be my exclusive right for list, right? Or it'd be my DPOR form, or it'd be my office ABA, right? Or it'd be my earnest deposit, which actually wouldn't come into play until actually I'm under contract, right? That would go under a fully ratified contract. Right, proof of letter, proof of funds, proof of delivery of escrow, right, EMD. And then once you have all the documents in there, right? Because you have to submit those documents. Just because your broker signed a document, this is another important thing. You took a listing, your broker signed it. Doesn't mean they reviewed everything. So you have to have them sign it first. And then you would actually submit to your market center where they will actually go through your documents with a fine tooth comb. Very important to know. When do you have to submit your contracts to your market center?
Within 2 days.
Within 2 days, right? You know how many times my broker receives executed contract day, the day of closing? A lot, way too many. It should never happen. So don't be that person. Never quite understood this. Why do I want to make the person's life who controls my paychecks difficult? I watch people argue with brokers. I watch people argue with the MCAs, and I never understood it. When I was new to the business, I was hovering. You missing anything? Did I do anything wrong? Like I was, believe it or not, we still did actual green sheets back then. I had check boxes, paper, the whole, some of you know what I'm talking about. It was a mess. But I was scared to death to piss them off and do something wrong. I don't know. In this world today, people assume they've done everything right and it's somebody else's fault. Don't be that person. They get a lot thrown at them. Sometimes mistakes happen, but make sure you're good. Make sure you're good with them. Okay. Now, once these documents have been uploaded, right? There's 3 dots next to each documents here. I can print, I can remove that document. Up here, there's 3 dots. I can split a document if I need to split something some more. I can export documents. Export documents is actually a new feature we just released in here, which is really cool because every April we have taxes. If somebody bought or sold a property, that HUD typically gets lost for a lot of people. So what I'll do is I'll email them the HUD like in March or February. And so they have it. So I can export and email a document to my clients. Say, hey, here's your HUD for tax records. Thanks for doing business with me last year. If you happen to know anybody that this year might be looking to buy, sell, or invest, right? Always take the opportunity to ask for referral, right? So I'm sending that to them.
Is that something you can put in your checklist? So like, even though, let's say you're doing this in July, right? And so you're not, it's going to be quite a while before you're going and reminding your client that they need to submit this document for tax purposes, in February or March, you're sending it to them. Is that something like back in July? Could you have put that on your checklist and then would it show up in your tasks for the following February?
That would actually be, because once you close, they disappear from the opportunity, right? They go closed.
Oh,
so
right.
No more checklist, right? So what I do in that case is that I would have a smart plan for post-closing. First year post-closing, because there's going to be follow-up that you might call them, might do everything, but I would certainly have a send them HUD type of step. Now, the only thing that's missing right now that we're working are date triggers, but once I have a date trigger, that's about to change. When I have a date trigger, I say, hey, March 1st, send all HUDs out to everybody that closes a transaction with me. That would be a smart plan that I would set up. That might actually just be a one-step smart plan. That's just a task. And that part of my closing process is add them to March send HUD smart plan.
Okay.
That's how I would do that. Okay. So that's DocuSign, right? You got to, it's again, not complicated, but we make it complicated. There are multiple steps and it is a process. And that's the complicated part. It's multi-steps. I beg of you to go in there, okay, and practice. Change emails with each other, guys. Send each other's emails in chat and just say, hey guys, let's send a couple contracts back and forth. Somebody do a listing, be the seller. Somebody do a buyer and then be the buyer. And then be agents and counter back and forth with each other, right? Send documents back and forth. Audit, edit, update. See what they use, see what they look like when they come in, how you counter, how you sign. That's best practice. That way, when you're doing it in real life, you're not struggling. We'll always be here to support you. Like, you're like, hey, I'm stuck. It's what your Market Center PC coach is for. It's what your mentor for. It's what your Market Center tech trainer is for. Your team leader we will always help you, right? We will always help you get through these things, but help yourself first. As I mentioned, I gotta drop dead at 10:30 today. I got about 5 minutes for questions. Did that help? Does that feel comfortable? You have a better understanding of soup to nuts, the command system.
Yeah,
What'd you guys think?
for sure.
Had a great week. Thank you.
Remember, I do this whether me and
Thank
my
you,
mom, we're doing this every month. So the next round of these will be February 7th. Right. So we're going to do this again. And the cool thing about it with an improving platform like Command, every class is a little bit different because we're always rolling in new stuff. Fundamentally, it'd be the same. I'm not saying you need to come every month. Maybe come 2 or 3 times a year and get a refresher. You're always welcome. Okay. They're always recorded. You all now have the YouTube channel, right? So you can always go in and be like, hey, maybe I didn't make Dave's class, but I went in January and now it's July. And let me go look at the July classes because we're posting them and go see if anything changed and just kind of watch them in 1.5 times and then pause if something looks new or different to you. I hope you have all selected to follow the Facebook page. When we do updates that you need to know about, I'll do a quick video and training tutorial on Facebook and just kind of send that to you guys so you guys have it. We're an open book, right? Ask the questions, self-advocate, but always ask, always be alert, always be alert. Remember on the homepage of Command, right? When you set up your dashboard, I told you guys to activate the product updates tab widget. And if you haven't, just go into customize home, check on product updates and put that on your page, right? Same with design updates. That way you always know what's new. At Command, we're telling you, KWRI is telling you, hey, there was no new releases this week. Okay, great. But if there was, we would tell you. And if there's something that was more detailed, there'll be a hyperlink going to an answers article or a video tutorial showing you what was changed, what was updated, and what you need to know about. And I can tell you next week, we will have some changes that go live. I'm actually going to get on a call here at 11. That is going to have some nice improvements that will be available through Smart Plans for you guys. I can't let it out of the bag yet because I need to make sure it goes live. But you'll see a video from me next week about some new changes that will be beneficial to you guys. Well, since it's been a pleasure working with you guys all week. My email is daviddonaldson@kw.com. If there's something you need, feel free to reach out. Remember, your Mark Center Tech Trainer will probably get back to you faster than I do, unless I am your Mark Center Tech Trainer. But you can always email me if you have to, okay?
Yeah.
You all
Thank
have
you so much.
Thank you guys for everything, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody. Go out and lead generate.
thank you, David.
Thank you.
Don't be-
Thank you.
Build those
You
businesses.
guys.
All right.